to this session, a short session on the new software that we've developed, Anti-Money Laundering Compliance Plus. We've been working with this for about 15 months with a company called BHIS. Some of you will know them through the company secretarial software that they write. And joining me today is Ian Sturgess and Stephen Bennett, who wrote the software. Our role within it was to put in the technical content of it. So those of you who have had our money laundering manual and procedures, effectively what we've done is we've taken that information and put it into the software. And the aim of the software is to help the MLROs to comply fully with the money laundering regulations and also to provide all the documentary evidence to demonstrate compliance. As we go through the software, we've built into that lots of ways in which we can actually help you to understand exactly what sort of evidence you have or you need. And so it looks at the risk profile. It requires a risk profile on every client, which is a requirement of the money laundering regulations. It looks at risk profile. It looks at the type of client, such as a charity or a company or a partnership. And based on those two, it says, well, this is the way you can meet the ID requirements, the customer due diligence requirements for the entity. And then within the individuals, this is the options, this is what you need to do in order to get at the ID for an individual. Perhaps the best feature of this is how easy it is to see where you are with clients. So, for example, on the side here, under clients, under the bit there, you can see lots of green ticks, or green circles with a white tick in it. Those are clients that are fully compliant. Everything we need to do for those clients is sorted now. We have a number of red crosses. We have a problem with those. And we have a little yellow up against Belfry Golf Supplies. We've got a yellow light bulb, which means it's okay at the moment, but built into the software is a requirement for you to keep your evidence up to date, which is what's within the money laundering regulations. And as you approach a date where something is about to expire and need to be reviewed and updated, you will get the light bulb. Now, we've put a lot of functionality into this so that you can decide, for example, what dates you want, whether we're going to actually have maybe 12 months review, 24 months, 36 months, and how soon you want this little bulb to pop up. Do you want it to pop up 6 months before something runs out, or 3 months, or just 1 month? When you get started as the MLRO setting this up, you have a lot of options that you can choose. So you could, for example, choose to get rid of KYC, know your client information, straight away, so you just not ask it. We're using this software ourselves, and we have a very comprehensive database system which has got everything for all the clients that we deal with. So we've actually said, look, we don't need to replicate KYC there. We're just going to look at our database. It's got everything we need sat there. So you can get rid of KYC altogether. You can keep it, but not report on it as a problem. Or you can say, as we've done here, we want Know Your Client built into the software, and if we haven't got a Know Your Client form fully completed, then it's going to come up as a problem. You can do the same with due diligence checks. We've got personal declarations set up so that all your staff will say, I understand the systems, I'm going to comply with it, and you have trained me. You can disable those. You can record training events within the system, or you can disable them. So you don't have to have that. And within the training events, it will tell you which of your staff hasn't been on any training this year. Built into the system is an MLRO compliance review, so you can say, I want that as part of the software, or I'm going to do that separately as part of my overall compliance reviews, maybe under practice assurance, and therefore I don't want it duplicated in the software. And once again, we also have built into it the procedures. You have a policy, you have to have policies and procedures. We have the ability there, so if I just click on the View Firms Procedures, we have a pro forma that we can put in, and we actually get you here. I've tailored it, but as you get the software, there's a pro forma there which you have to tailor, but that will actually help you to meet that part of it. When we're looking at the software, what we're seeing here are the clients. Now, I've talked you through the green ticks and the red crosses and the light bulb, but we've got a second column here where we've got a yellow triangle with an exclamation mark in. This is a client that's on alert, and the red cross, the red circle with a cross through it, is a client that's on hold, and the picture here of a little man is a politically exposed person. So you've got very visual ideas, and we can go in and we can just say, well, I would just want to filter and have all of this information here. Let me just bring this one back and close that document there. So on this one, I can go in and I can filter it and say, just give me clients which has got a bit of a problem there, or I can reset it. So I'm going to drill down into a client with a problem. So where we see a cross, we can just double click on the client and we drill down into this one. This is SWAT UK as a client. And you can see over here on the right-hand side of this, top right-hand side, we've got two crosses and two ticks. And that's telling us that we're okay with the client ID, looking at the entity. We're okay with the review date, but we have a problem with the associated persons and the know your client. So if we drill, again, we just click on the cross. There we can see now we've got three people. We've got Adam and Eve from Adam and Eve Eden. They're all okay. But there's this third guy called Mike Sturgess, and he's got a cross beside him. So again, we can just keep drilling down, double click to drill down, and for Mike Sturgess, you can see I've got a review date okay, but I don't have an adequate ID. Once again, I can drill down into the cross. And what we have here, this is now using the risk profile of the client as an individual. It's saying, well, how can you do ID? And we've got various ways of doing it. We can run an electronic ID check. We can ask for a government-issued photo ID with a sanctions check, or non-photo ID with a home address and a sanctions check, or we can get certified copies, or we can rely on somebody else, or we can find some other confirmation of identity. And in order to get it, we need to take one of these sections between the sort of little blue bands with an or, and we need green ticks on all of those. So what I'm going to do here is actually, on associated persons, drill down, and I'm going to run electronic verification. So if I double click on this electronic ID, it says, we don't have one of these at the moment, we haven't got an evidence set up, so do you want to go with that? And I'm going to say yes. So it creates a record of ID for me. And what we've got built into this is an electronic ID system. Most of the ones that are available commercially, you have to commit to spending, several £100s a year minimum. This one is actually built in. You can set up an account and you just pay for what you use. So when I click on that, it's done in conjunction with the GP group, and you've got a basic one, which will just check name and address and date of birth, but it'll also look at things like telephone and electricity supply. Or you can have an enhanced one, which will actually verify passport numbers, national insurance numbers, driving license numbers, and so on. I'm just going to do a basic one, which costs £3. I'm going to perform the check. It does actually require you to click on the button to confirm, because you will get billed for this if you're running them. The good news is I'm running this under a test module, so I don't get billed for this. And I'm click the button to perform the check, and that's now going off through the internet. It's running a check with the GB group on Mike Sturgess. It's generated the report, and we can now look at the report here, and the good news is I've been verified. So in effect, you've just done me. That's the end of it. You get a complete PDF which is attached to the documents. So as we go down here, this is the information that was submitted. So it's got name, address, date of birth. As we go to the second page, it tells you what happened. So it's matched my date of birth. It's looked at the electoral roll and checked that I exist. It's looked at the share database, which is the bank's database of mortgages and credit card and bank loans and things like that. It hasn't done a credit check. It just said, Mike Sturgess at Holywell, Pengo Road, Lisgard, all on that date, has got a mortgage or has got a credit card, or so on. It's always pleasing to know I'm not dead, so it checks the mortality register, and it has confirmed that at least I'm not dead at that address. I may be dead elsewhere, but not at that address. It's checked that Royal Mail hasn't got a redirect on me at my home, so it could be that I've moved, in which case I would probably have had a Royal Mail redirect so that my post is sent on. It's checked the telephone and made sure that there is a valid number at that address, and the name and first initial, so it's registered to M. Sturgess at Holywell, Pengo Road in Lisgard. And it's checked that there is an electricity supply. Now, as part of the enhanced check, I could have gone in and put my supply number in, and it would have checked that the supply number from my bill is exactly the same, and that avoids people taking a copy of an electricity bill, sticking it into Photoshop and changing the name and address, because the supply number wouldn't match up with the name and address. It's also done a sanctions check and a PEP check. So if we close that, you'll now see it's created that little evidence ID. So I've done this check. It's actually stored that in here. So if I go to this little evidence and open that, I can view the report. And all of this is now filed on the system. So you can see how quick I've spent a lot longer talking about it than we have done actually looking at it. So if I say OK to that record, now straight away, having clicked on it, it says, OK, but you need to keep this up to date. So when are you going to review this? And it doesn't mean you have to redo the test, but you've got to look at it and say, is it still valid? So on this form of electronic verification, I'm going to say was 36 months. So I've now got a tick for that person, for me. So if I look at the ID obtained, one of the sections, electronic ID, has now got ticks on it. So now if I go back, I've got ticks on all three people. So if I go back to the general one, I've now got a tick on associated person's ID. All I need to do is go into the next section, which is Know Your Client. Now, having sort of watched Blue Peter when I was a child, this is one I've done before, so I've put all of the Know Your Client information in here, apart from the last one. So I'm literally going to say, is there anything else you want to say about Mike Sturgess? I'm saying, no, nothing else, not applicable, and accept it. But these questions are pre-entered in, but you're allowed to go. You can change them, you can get rid of questions, you can add questions, you can create your own KYC form, Know Your Client form if you wish. So now SWOT UK is ticked because within it everything is fine there. And one of the other things, if we looked at Lisgar Parochial Church Council, there's another client there, that has now got ticks on it because I'm also down under associated persons as the link there. So as soon as you did me on the one, you've now got evidence of ID for me. That does for both jobs. However, if you've done this check for me as the church, and that was normal risk, but I was also a beneficial owner or a director or something like that for a high-risk job, it would say, I'm sorry, for that client, you need some additional evidence for Mike Sturgess. So whilst it would be acceptable for some clients, other ones, it'll look at the risk on a client-by-client basis and tell you whether or not we need any information there. So what we're going to do now is actually create a new client. So we're going to go in and set up a new client, and the first box you come up is a new client wizard, and it says select the entity type. So we can see here we've got individuals, we've got partnerships, unlisted, listed companies, LLPs, charities, churches and others, clubs, pensions, professional practices, public bodies and the government bodies in the UK or overseas, FSA type businesses, schools and universities, trusts and foundations. So we're going to set up an unlisted limited company. And one of the facilities we've brought into this says, well, would you like to import the information from Company's House? So I'm going to say yes, we want to do that. So all I need for that is the number. So I'm going to type in the number for SWOT Holdings, one of our businesses, and we're going to import the information there. So again, it's going off to that and saying that's fine, it's got the information, and the record must be saved. Do we want to save it? Absolutely. So now it's created, and it's gone and got the information from Company's House. Here's the address. On the statutory information, again, it's dropped it in as our registered office. Down the bottom here, you'll see risk profile. So if we want to define the risk, we can either do it manually, or there's a little wizard. The wizard will ask you a series of questions which will generally, for most clients, will come up with normal risk. So it's basically asking you if it's a listed company or if it's anything else that will get simplified due diligence or if it's something that will require you to have enhanced due diligence. But we're just going to put a normal risk in and it defaults to normal and I'm just going to say OK. If I had selected low or I'd selected high risk, then I would have had to put some narrative in there. As before, I'm going to do a next review, and it asks me what review date I want. We set up to prompt to 1, 2 or 3 years. You may say, well, if it's high risk, I'm going to have 1 year. If it's normal risk, I'll have 2. If it's low risk, I'll have 3. Or you can say, well, because I do annual work, I just want them to check it every year, just to have a look at it. I'm going to set this to 2. So that's the new client setup. Then we need to look at the ID for this client. So we have to save the record first. And what we have here now are the options for this entity. So we're looking at the ID for the entity. So we're going to do a full company search. Now, most of you have got facilities. We haven't built in a full company search within this. We may look at that in the future, but at the moment, virtually all the clients that we're dealing with have the ability to do that. So all we'll do here is create a new client. You do have the ability to scan, if you've got a scanner attached, to scan something in, or you can select something. So I'm going to go to the file, go to my desktop, and I've got a folder there with AML documents, and I'm just going to put in a company search. It's actually not a company search. It's just a piece of a scanned-in document which got company search written on it. So we would put in here company search and save that. We can just put a narrative there, and we say the result is satisfactory. If we're happy that what we've got meets that particular bit, we click on satisfactory, and again we have to say, well, when are we going to next do a company search? We'll go with 24 months. So we've got to tick on that one. If we go back to what is required, the next tab, you'll see we've now got a tick here. We'll put in the beneficial owners. So it says, do you want to set up a record for beneficial owners? And we'll just say, the beneficial owners are Mike and Adrian. So you can literally just type the names in here if you want. And you don't have to set these up, but you may want to then choose to set these up as associated individuals or associated persons. And that just leaves a sanctions check. So we're going to run a sanctions check. And again it says, do you want to do something? We've built in here a free sanctions check. So what this does is this will download, the first time when you've got the software open, it'll download the treasury check, and it'll look for anything which has got swap or holdings or limited, which is the 3 parts of it. And you'll see it's got a reference there to the swap valley in Pakistan, and it's got a whole pile of economic holdings, which has got a, so if we were to click on one of those, we can see here this is a Union of Myanmar Economic Holdings Limited. So we can flip down on the right-hand side these. You can see there's nothing there for swap. We're quite happy with this now. So we can close down the sanctions and say evidence is satisfactory. It does say checked, and we need to then, as we say okay, it say when do we want to run this again? We'll go 24 months. So now we've got 3 ticks, which means we've completed this. If we go back to the general tab and click on that, so that we're going to say OK, come back into swap holdings, we'll now see the client ID is there. I'm going to go in and set up an associated person. You can either create a new one, or you can go and look from somebody who's already in the system. So I just picked me as a person, and straight away that's saying, oh, you've already done Mike Sturgess, he's okay, but I haven't set the relationship. So here I'm going to set a relationship, and I can do it as director, or I can go and do it as beneficial, and you can change these. So you could say, owner or beneficial owner. I'll put that in as beneficial owner. And so now for associated persons, that's fine. And when I save that and come back in, you'll see it's now ticked there. And that takes me back to all I would need to do is click on there and do know your client, which I've already shown you that. I won't take you through that. So that's the basic way in which we get a client in. We can set a client up quite quickly. We can get all the evidence, and straight away you'll see, now I still haven't finished off swap holdings. When I'm talking to MROs, one of the issues that I find is they say, well, most of our clients are in compliance. We've got KYC from most of our clients and ID from most of our clients. And you say, well, which ones aren't? Which ones don't you have? And I say, well, I'm not really too sure. And other than picking up every file and going through it, there's no real way of dealing with that. Some of the other facilities I haven't shown you down this right-hand side on the Actions tab. You can go in and you can search for the money laundering regulations. So if we went and searched for supervisory bodies, or just supervisory, I'm not sure if it comes in there. So this is now downloading the money laundering regulations, and we've got all the supervisory authority, so it takes you straight into that. So it gives you the ability to search the regulations. We've also got search of various guides, so we've got the Joint Money Laundering Steering Group Guidance, Office of Fair Trading, CCAB for the accountancy one, ICAW Tax Faculty one, and we've got links through to things like the Revenue, the Law Society, RICS, and the Bar Council. So we have some various links there, and the free sanctions check we did already. We have actually, you saw me run this check for me, for Mike Sturgess, and that was a full-blown electronic check, but we've also now built into it a PEP check, because a number of the firms say, well, I'm quite happy getting passport and utility bill, or just a passport if I've met the person, but, how do I deal with a PEP check? So we've built into it, you can do it for £1.25, it'll run a sanctions and a PEP check, so it'll run the name of the individual against that, and again, record that information and keep that all on file that you can show what you've done. Up here on the top left in the compliance alerts is a function called the MRO function, and this is if you're running the compliance reviews, it tells you when your last review was, and we can print the last reviews, and you can create a review on the screen, and you can then save it and say, like, this is fine, I've dealt with everything. You record your MROs in here, so you enter an MRO. Once you've done that, that gives the MRO special status, so they can come in and change some things. And you're allowed more than one MRO. As you can see, we've put 2 people in here. You can also then set up your own registration details as a regulated entity. This is, so the registration type we've got here is auditors, insolvency accountants, and tax advisors. I won't change this, but we have other ones in there. If you change that will change the default KYC. If I did that, I'd actually wipe all my KYC records, because it said, okay, well, you don't want them anymore. You want something. You're going to become solicitors. So we don't do that. And this is where you'll put your policies and procedures. But down the left-hand side here, we can go in and we can set up the firm's people. So you can put all your staff in there, and you can give them rights. Now, this does actually include within the process here, we have the reporting suspicions. So if I say OK to that and we come into the suspicions, I can create a suspicion. So I can create a new suspicion for a client, and if I log in, I can see my suspicions. When I create a suspicion, that will actually send an email to the MRO or MROs, say a new suspicion has been created by Mike Sturgess. It doesn't say what the suspicion is. The MLRO then logs in and can see that suspicion. So the MLRO can see everybody's suspicions and all the history. And once the suspicion has been done, it's been dealt with, maybe sent to soccer. I mean, obviously you still log into soccer in a traditional way on SARS Online, but everything else is recorded in there. And you can either show dead clients, ones that you've dealt with and you've only now got active suspicions there, or you can show everything, and that's your choice there. So we have the personal declarations I mentioned earlier on. If we're looking on the compliance view there, you have these declarations that people can make. And we do recommend that staff are asked to sign a personal declaration so they have been trained. And there are other facilities. We can do a staged implementation. When we're setting this up from scratch, you can import files from a CSV file. If you've got BHIS's system, then you can import it from their company secretary software. And here's the subscriptions details where we set up whether you want KYC or not. Well, that's a quick canter through the sections. I haven't seen anything come out, but to be honest, I haven't been looking. So suggest you demonstrate the wizard, so Stephen. Which wizard are we looking at? The new client wizard or the risk wizard? May well have done it since then. So the risk assessment. Okay, a very quick demonstration. We'll set up a new client, and we'll say we're going to do. Actually, no, I'll come out of that. I'll cancel that. I'll go into an existing firm, and we'll redo the risk here. So we'll define the risk, and we'll do the wizard. And what the wizard is doing is saying, are we dealing with a business or an individual? This is a business. Is it a FSA or a listed? And we'll say no, it's not, because that would make it simplified due diligence. Does it appear to have unnecessary complex or unusual structure? No. Is it owned or operated for a politically exposed person? No. Does it transact with companies with weak money laundering? No. Does the business pose a higher than normal risk? No. Have you met the individuals? Yes, because if you didn't, that would make it, if you hadn't, that would make it a high risk. Is it a member of a recognised professional body? So we could just look them up in the Institute Handbook or the Law Society. This is saying normal. And when we go into that, so this is now set this as normal, and you have other areas where you can record information as to what's been going on, but that will actually then track that and say, right, we have a normal client there. So how is it priced? You can actually get the information that it's priced per client. The starting price for 30 clients is £95 per year. For 100 clients, it's £195. For 250 clients, it's £395 a year. 500 clients, it's £570. If you've got 750 clients, it's £720. So you're now down to less than £1 a client. And then it's £125 for extra 250 clients. So by that stage, you're down to less than £1 a client. How would I help identify a UK company owned by two Chinese corporation entities, e.g. identifying the Chinese controlling entities? You would actually do that. So let's take SWAT UK. And when we do this, we are looking at effectively associated persons. So we have the entity here. We can make notes as to what's going on. So you can see this is stuff that I've done where I've actually set the entity up. The software will automatically make some notes, but you could say, okay, this is owned by so-and-so, it's owned by that, and effectively you would need to set these people up as individuals. So when you get to the Chinese corporate entities, either there are no people who are beneficial owners of that Chinese entity, or there are beneficial. The entity itself, if there are no beneficial owners of the Chinese entity, you don't have to do the ID for that. Actually, you're looking for the Chinese owners of that as being the ultimate beneficiaries of this entity. In terms of, is there a sort of a link where we can do electronic verification for Chinese companies? Sadly, no. I'm not actually aware of one that will do that automatically. Another question coming from David React for expat, US, etc., who we'd ID through GB Group. You can't actually get most of these electronic systems off the UK individuals. They're looking at the UK banking share database, they're looking at electronic ones there. In that situation, if you were looking at an individual, we would go into the persons, pick up, let's say Arnold Palmer is an American. When we look at the ID for this person, it would give us the ability there to go in, as we go through the company, because it's the risk of the company that would work here, then what would happen is it would say, well, on electronic, you've got the ability to do certified copies. So one of the options there was certified copies, and that would be the best way. A few more. Mike, can you demonstrate expert guidance? Yes, we have built into this expert guidance. So throughout it, you've got this little button down here which says expert guidance. How do I decide which individuals need evidence of identification? So we've put contextual information in there, so it's effectively an equivalent of some of our manuals that we've issued explaining how to do money laundering and the implications. So we've put a lot of that information in there, but you've also got generic stuff like tipping off that I can click on tipping off and say, well, just tell me about tipping off. And we've got information there. So built into this, as well as the software, how do I use the software? You've got information here about the money laundering regulations and how they apply. Can we conduct I'm not sure if I missed, can you say more about staff training element? Was the question there. So if we go into the staff training side, that we can actually create from this through the MRO functions there. We've got personnel training, so we can create, here I've created an event called Seasonal Money Laundering Q&A. It's one of our regular webinars. We can go for we can just say add all current personnel, so you just put everybody in the firm into the system, and we can, having done it, we can just mark them all as complete, and then if necessary we go in and mark them as not complete. We can also add new people, so I can put a new person in there, if I just had certain ones that, maybe 6 people on, I could just cherry pick with 6 people. Or I could say, well, actually, Sue Charlton didn't do that. I'm going to delete her, so she's no longer in the system. Now, when I go to the personnel and then start to look at these, you'll see here we've got Sturgess and Peterson. There's a little triangle there, alert, saying they haven't been on any training events at all. So that's the way a quick canter through the way the training goes. What other questions have you got? Can we conduct a company search straight out of the software? Not yet. What you can do straight out of the software is the free search. So if we were to take, let's do SWOT UK, because it's a valid company, and we look at ID for this client, and we look at the options. We've got a free company's house search. So I can run a free company's house search. From there, it's going to company's house, it's checking, and it's saying, well, okay, yep, SWOT UK does exist, there's its address, but that's all you're getting. What you don't get is a list of the beneficial owners, the list of the shareholders and list of directors, which you would get from the full search. One of the things we will look at is talking to company's house. This is readily easily available. We will look at that, but at the moment it's not in this version of it. Is a company in 2 directors classed as 1 client or 3 clients? The company with the directors is 1 client, and they would be associated persons, but you can also set up, so if you were doing my personal tax return, you could set me up as an individual as well. Now, from that point of view, setting me up as an individual, it's 1 person you would set up there, and you would link them. So you set me up as an individual client, and then within SWOT UK, having done the ID for me as a client in SWOT UK, you would set me up as an associated person, and that ID would come through, provided the risk profiles matched. If SWOT UK was high risk, but the tax return was standard risk, then when you came into SWOT UK, it would need another piece of evidence of ID to bring it up to the high risk. Read my previous question. For costing purposes, I'm slightly lost at that one. Let me go back and see what the previous question was. Training element, conduct company search. I'm not sure what this one is. Read my previous question for costing purposes. So just something to give me some clarification on that. Previous from Karen Dixon. Let's go back and run through, see what I've missed. Sorry, we got questions down the bottom as well. How is it licensed priced? I think we've covered that. So the license allows any number of people to log in. It's effectively a firm-wide license there in that sense. Any reason why software would not be suitable for sole practitioners with no staff? No, you just don't have to use the functions for training and the like. But in terms of controlling everything that you've got, in terms of the clients, the ID, the know your clients, and all of that stuff, that would be fine. There's no problem at all. Are there any other questions that people have asked that I haven't picked up? There's 2 previous questions from Karen Dixon here, but I'm not sure which ones they are, Karen. So it might be easiest if you actually send them through again, unless I've answered them, in which case just let us know that's okay. Well, that has taken us past 1 o'clock. I'm still happy to stay here if people have got more questions. That's great. If you want to actually go and have a look at this, you need to go to the website. You've got a link through from the articles on our website, but the website for this software is www.amlcplus.co.uk. So amlcplus.co.uk. I think the costings was to do with clients the question was to do with clients versus individual persons. It's licensed per client. You have as many people as you want. So you could have even if you're only licensed for 250 clients, you could have 5,000 persons on there. So that's not a problem. And when you import this, you have one import for client and another import for people. And you can, if your software allows, or if you've got a spreadsheet which you're doing a CSV file, you can actually link them to the unique identifier of the client and say director, and it will create that relationship, provided it recognizes the word, that you've got a director in there. So you can actually, when you're importing, you import the clients, then you import everything else. The questions come through from David, does it link with practice management software? Sadly, no. What you can do is if you're using Practice Engine or Digital or one of these, you can export data into Excel and feed that into here. But it is a duplicate database in a sense. But we looked at all the practice management software we looked at when we were starting this just didn't cover it in any way the same way as this. It certainly doesn't give you the information. I know some will say if you're setting up a new client, you can't do it until you've got the ID in place, but it does absolutely nothing for old clients. I think that looks as though we've answered all the questions, but as I say, I'll hang around for a few minutes, but thank you very much for the time to spend some time looking at this. If you want to go and download a valuation copy, then go to the www.amlcplus.co.uk. Thank you very much. Aaron, if you're still there, then the reference you use, you can have your own reference code. It's free text. There's not a limit as far as I'm aware of the number. I don't know, Ian, if you want to chip in, if you're aware of a limit, but basically that's free text. You can use whatever referencing system you normally use.
Yes, hi, Mike. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. There's no prerequisite as to what you can use. I think it's limited to 20 characters, alphanumeric, spaces, hyphens, anything you like.
Okay. So, I mean, 20 should get you most things. So bearing in mind the name and address is all kept separately.